I've just got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you just about your music creation journey, really, and just kind of how you found working with other people in like the process of developing your albums.
Yeah.
So um, just wrote a couple of things down just so I don't forget. So yeah, how did you like what was it that first got you interested in wanting to create your own music? Like how did you first get started in music?
So I was very young. I think I was about 10 years old. I always really loved to sing and dance. And I think it was just, I had a cassette tape where you could record. And I just remember hearing something on the radio and then, pressing record to record it. And then I found out you could also, record your own voice. So then I'd record myself and then I'd switch over to another tape and then I'd add a harmony or another, part to it. So that's kind of how I started writing music. And then I had a keyboard. Both my parents played instruments anyway. So it was really normal in our house to play music. And we had a keyboard and I just started finding noises, when they've got like the sounds on the keyboard and stuff. And I just started playing around, and the songs always just came really natural for me. It wasn't something that I thought about too much, it was just something that happened quite naturally, quite organically. Play, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, would you say it's something that you find relatively easy to do in the sense of it feels like something that you're quite naturally inclined towards doing, feel naturally guided towards doing?
Yeah, I'd say definitely the music side of it in terms of creating a song or just being around musicians and creating music together. I feel very comfortable to just come up with stuff on the spot or just kind of songs will just drop inside my mind sometimes and then I'll just have to write them, whether that's writing it down or just recording myself or just singing it. I'd say the technology side doesn't come as natural to me. I always found myself very frustrated with it. It seemed like I don't know if this is another question, but on my journey, there was always kind of limits to what I could create or how I could create based on the access that I had to the technology. And that was always really frustrating to me, not just the access, but just the fact that I didn't always know how to use it. But then again, I always found out how to make some use of it, even if it was something that couldn't. So, for example, I had this box, but I didn't know how to link it to actually, put it on a laptop, for example. So it just stayed on that, and I had 100 songs on there, but I didn't know how to get it to, and I think my dad found out how to put it on a mini disc or something, and eventually we made a CD, but it just everything seemed to take a long time. So I think on that side of it, it didn't come necessarily natural to me. However, I still managed to figure out the technology, and once I got around it, once I knew how to use a certain tool, I'd just be running with it.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And from my own experience, can relate to that. Like, I find that I hear melodies and drum beats and bass lines and stuff, but then when it actually comes to trying to find a way of like recreating it in real life through like, a DAW or something like that, I find it difficult to make that link between I can hear it in my head, but how can I like get the technology to recreate it in real life?
Yeah.
So the fact that you've been able to find a way of like navigating the technology is in and of itself, I think, a really kind of, it's an achievement, I think, to be able to learn how to do it because it is, I don't think people quite understand like how hard that process is of being able to
Mm-mm.
recreate your music in real life through technology. So, just kind of while we're on that subject of technology, like how did you find the process of actually developing your albums, and specifically, like working with other people? Like, how did you find that whole experience of having to coordinate everyone and getting everything aligned so that you could actually create your albums?
Yeah, I think again, there's things that come naturally to me and there's things that don't. So when it comes to communicate, like just being with people, I'm quite chatty and I love working with musicians once we're in the studio. I'm really good at, getting across what I want and allowing people to be creative as well. So I love seeing a musician, and I know we've worked together before, so like allowing someone to do their own thing and kind of add little bits, but then I'm also quite good at saying, not on this bit, I want it like this. And so I feel like in that sense, working with others, I find I'm also really good at networking. And we met at a gig and then we just reached out to each other and it happened again quite organically. So I think in terms of the collaborations, everything seemed to happen really organically. So I just choose people where I felt there was energy there. So if somebody was talking to me and told me that they were a musician, or if I'd worked with someone before and there was a good vibe, or it was just kind of, I just tuned into the energy of how I felt that person would would be easy to work with, or like I like their sound. And so in that sense, I do find it easy working with musicians. On the other hand, the organization side of it, that I found a real challenge, because just having to like set dates and times and also just kind of, again, the putting the technical side of sort of putting everything together and making sure that everything worked on a timeline. That part I don't find as easy, because my mind doesn't always work in terms of dates and times and set limits. It's just more creative, and it's just kind of, but then at the same time, when you've got a huge project like that, you do need to tell people, I'd like you in the studio on this date, or asking them what days are you available and getting it booked in. And then also, if you're working with them remote, you need to give them some guidelines, like you need to give them the chords, you need to give them the music, and all of that stuff takes preparation, and it takes time to get the tracks, say if it's a bass line, for example, you need to give them either a demo track or tell them what chords you need to do. So I think that side of it I did find more challenging, because it does require an element of organization that I wasn't necessarily accustomed to when I was just writing my own songs or producing my own tracks just on by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a learning curve for sure.
Just in relation to that, what would you say the benefits are of working collaboratively with others and working on your own? Because I'm guessing
Mm.
like there's kind of pros and cons to both, isn't there? But like for you, what are kind of the benefits that you found of working collaboratively with others? And also, what do you find the benefits are of just working alone?
I'll start with when you're by yourself, when you're on your own. The benefits of working on your own are that you have complete creative control, in the sense of you don't have anyone else to say, no, I don't want to do it like that, or no, I can't do it like that. You just direct the entire project. Also, for example, if you've got a time limit or something, you don't have to rely on other people's schedules. You don't have to talk to anyone necessarily. You get into kind of like a zone where you can literally just, or it's almost, it can be quite, I guess, there can be a spiritual aspect to it where you just kind of disappear into your own world or your own fantasy land in a way, which can be beneficial. But there's also sort of dangers to that approach well, I say dangers, but like the benefits of collaborating, on the other hand, is that you have other people's input. So it's almost like the sum of what are they? What's that? I think the sum of the parts create a bigger whole. I can't remember
I know the phrase you mean. I
quote.
can't quite remember it as well.
More than the sum of the parts. So basically, I think normally it's not always the case. Sometimes what you can create by yourself is amazing and you don't need to add anything to it. So sometimes the simple songs are the best. And an example of that from my own work that some people really love a song that I wrote called Trust. It's just me and the piano. And I did work with someone to help to get it down on a recording, but I did all the music and I wrote all the lyrics, and there's no one else inputted in that song. And there is a simplicity to it, a vulnerability where people just get a peek into what I was feeling in that moment. And a lot of people really resonate with that song and they say it just speaks to them. So I think there's a beauty in that simplicity when you do things by yourself. On the other hand, when I've worked with other musicians, I get to use sounds that I wouldn't know how to create. And it's not because I'm not good enough, it's just that people have different skill sets and they also have different ways of playing. For example, on the song I did called Of Their Minds, originally that song was really just it was just beats and sounds, and it was quite sporadic, and it showed my state of mind. And I don't think you ever heard the original version because obviously you're on the track playing bass on that track, I think, aren't you? But the original version wasn't what's out there now. But when I worked with Javier, who wasn't on the track actually, but originally we did a live version, he started playing these jazz type of sounds, and it was more upbeat. And at first I thought, well, that, my song's supposed to be really emotional and like awkward almost, like not kind of, I guess, because I was in a place of still going through those mental health things that the song's talking about. But then when we changed the vibe, I opened up to this. So I decided in that moment, okay, I'm gonna put my ideas aside for the moment. It's still my song. I'm gonna just open up to this new sound and see what happens. And now when I perform the song, it feels so much lighter and so much more joyful, and everyone sings along, and it's fun. And I think that there's equal value to both versions for what they are. But I think when you're collaborating with people, it gives you a chance to step outside yourself and join in community. And I think that is the beauty of Their Minds now, because it used to be called Of My Mind. So it was all about me. And although I know if I'd have put it out in the original version, everyone would have got a glimpse of whatever state I was in at that time, but maybe I didn't really want to perform it like that, because that would have been maybe re-traumatizing for me, and it might not have felt as safe to perform on stage. That doesn't mean to say it wouldn't have been artistic, but I think having that community around me protected me in a certain way, and it meant that I could perform it much more without feeling those emotions again, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I find that an interesting point to hear you say, really, because I hadn't ever thought about the experience of being a songwriter and being in that vulnerable space of kind of expressing something that that has impacted you emotionally, and then having to go through the process of then sharing that in a, on stage with other people, and how that could be traumatizing. That's something that I've never considered from a songwriter's perspective. Like, it is such a vulnerable position that you put yourself in, really, when you are creating music from the heart and soul, and it is from your own personal experiences. And I also loved what you said then about how other people collaborating and offering their input can completely change the creative direction of a song. Um, Not necessarily like for better or worse, but just to make it different and something that you wouldn't
Mhm.
have thought of yourself. And I do think that that is one of the benefits of um, collaborative working, and also fully appreciate the benefits of having that time and space of just being in your own creative world where it's just you and whatever you connect with in that space, to feel like you can express yourself, and it's just a very intimate personal experience. um so I've One final question that I wanted to ask you was, like, one of the things that I love about the songs that you produce and create is that they are offered almost like an offering for other people to kind of take from it, what they feel resonates with them, and to kind of help people to tap into their own emotional, mental health, spiritual experiences. But I was interested to know, like, what you yourself get from creating music, and like, how does it feed you, or how does it kind of positively or negatively influence your life and experience?
That's a really good question. Um, I always feel when I'm playing my music, I get a sense of like really stillness within. Um, and if I'm working with someone else, especially, I get a sense of connection. And it it takes me to a space where nothing else matters and I'm just present in the moment. And it's one of the most beautiful experiences I think I've ever felt. It's like being in love in a way. It's like that sense that it's just you and your partner, you and the music. It's just, and that's why it's so beautiful to play with my partner as well, because when we play music together, it is like there's just love, and that's all there is. And it's the same whether I'm playing with a group or with just myself. I just feel like there's this unconditional love that is being shared in that moment. And obviously, there's times when, if things are going wrong with whatever the sound, or people are like, what's that chord again? It's not always, I'm not saying that it's 100% always complete enlightenment every time I play. It's not really like that.
Perfect all the time.
Yeah, it's not perfect all the time, but when it does flow, and that is becoming a more consistent experience now more than ever, when I play music or when I hear music as well. So it doesn't just happen when I'm playing, it actually happens when I'm around other musicians and I'm just listening to them. Um, at my gig, I got the other musicians to share some songs, as you saw when you were there. And for me, that's such a beautiful reflection